Good evening, guys, and welcome to interview preparation session, which is conducting by 360 DGTMG. And in today's session, we'll just go across some of the questions regarding data science and some of the questions regarding Python. I'll be just giving both question and answers regarding both the data science and Python. Okay. So for now, we'll just directly start with data science. So some of the basic topics of data science and Python. Okay. Till more we'll just see in further sessions. So the first question for the day, guys. In between the Python and R, in between this Python and R, which would you like to pick for using this analysis, and why you want to prefer in between choose anyone. So if anyone knows the answer, can ping me in the chat box and we'll discuss the answer within a minute. Yeah, fine. So here in between this both Python and R, we would pick Python in between them. Why? Because in Python we have n number of libraries, right? As we all know, there are pandas, NumPy, Matplotlib, sklearn, and all, right? So regardingly, this pandas library in Python, it offers easy to use some easy to use data structures, and Python is it has a faster performance for all types of text analytics. So yeah, so in between the R and Python, we choose Python because R is best fit for machine learning algorithms as comparatively with this text analysis. So text in as taking into the considerations, this the text analytics parts will be uh, further exactly and more accurately can be performed by Python as we compare to R. So that's why will be using Python. Okay. Yeah. So Hussein, yes, Hussein, we use Python for it. Yeah. As we jump into the next question. Explain about eigenvectors and eigenvalues. So if anyone knows the answer, can ping me in the chat box and we'll discuss the answer within a minute. Yeah. Now, as we look into this eigenvalues and eigenvectors, these eigenvectors are helping understanding the linear transformations. Okay, these eigenvectors are just helpful for us in understanding the linear transformations, and they are calculated for a correlation or covariance matrix in data analysis. This is how the eigenvectors are helpful to us. So as we come across the eigenvalues can be understood by strengths of the transformations, which means by the strength of the transformation and the direction of eigenvectors or the factors by using these com- compression happens. Okay, while compressing this, how does the direction of this vectors happen? So it will be exactly known by understanding this eigenvalue. Okay, so as we jump into the next question, explain about autoencoders, which means why are they useful here? So what were the purposes for what were the purposes that are being used here? So if anyone knows the answer, can ping me in the chat box and we'll discuss the answer within a minute. Yeah. Now, as we look into this autoencoders, these autoencoders are simplest learning networks which are used to transforming the inputs into outputs with minimum possible error, which means it directly transforms the learning network or transforms the inputs into output with some possible error rate. And these autoencoders receives the unlabeled inputs that is encoded for reconstructing the output part. So which means these unlabeled inputs they have been encoded towards the receivers and they'll be receiving for reconstructing the output at the output part. So this is how this auto encoders works. So as we jump into the next question, what is the concept of Boltzmann's machine? So if anyone knows the answer, can ping me in the chat box and we'll discuss the answer within a minute. Yeah. Now, as we look into this concept of Boltzmann's machine, a Boltzmann machine, it's basically a feature of some simple learning algorithms which enables the same to discover for fascinating features such as the complex regulations and also presenting the training data and all. So this simple learning algorithms, it also involves this Boltzmann's machine is very slow in networks to have many layers of feature detector, which means this Boltzmann machine is a bit slow as comparatively, and because they have in this machine in this Boltzmann machine they have many layers and features of our detectors. Okay, so this is the concept of Boltzmann's machine. So as we jump into the next question, explain GAN. What is the full form of it? And if anyone knows the answer, can ping me in the chat box, and we'll discuss the answer within a minute. Yeah, as we look into this, first of all, the full form of GAN is Generative Adversarial Network, and the main task which it's perform is to take the inputs from the noise vectors and again retrieve, which means again send it or forward it to the generator, and then to discriminator to identify the differentiate the unique or fake inputs, which means there are any two inputs are of same numbers or any unique fake inputs are there. So just to configure with it, first it always send to generator. Along with it, it also sends the this input information to discriminator, by which it can calculate the further procedures. Okay, as we jump into the next question. What are the components of GAN? So if anyone knows the answer, can ping me in the chat box, and we'll discuss the answer within a minute. Yeah. Now, as we look into this, what were the components of GAN? As I said before, there are only two components in GAN. The first one is generator, whereas the second one is discriminator. First of all, this GAN, it directly takes all the inputs into generator and then into the discriminator. So how this generator works? The generator acts as a figure which creates some fake copies. This is the function or the procedure should be done by the generator. As we come across this discriminator acts as a recognizer for the fake and unique copies. This is the function and procedure for discriminator. This is how the components of virtual GAN works. So as we jump into the next question, what are tensors? So if anyone knows the answer, can ping me in the chat box and we'll discuss the answer within a minute. Yeah. Now, as we look into this, what are these tensors? These tensors are the mathematical objects which will be represents and collects the high dimension data inputs. And the collected data inputs, it should be in the format of alphabets, numeric, and some of the inputs, and it directly goes through the neural networks. So these are called as tensors, and these are its functions. So as we jump into the next question, What is a dropout? So if anyone knows the answer, please ping me in the chat box and we'll discuss the answer within a minute. Yeah. Now, as we look into this dropout, this is a tool in data science. This is basically a tool in data science which is used for dropping out the hidden and invisible units of the network, which is of some random basis. By random basis, it directly dropouts are hidden the visible units of the network, and they prevent overfitting of the data by dropping as much 20% of the nodes. If there are any X amount of nodes, it directly drops such amount 20% of nodes so that the required space can be arranged for iterations. So that's how this dropout function works. So as we directly jump into the next question, what are the various libraries we use in Python? So if anyone knows the answer, can ping me in the chat box and we'll discuss the answer within a minute. Yeah. Now, as we look into this, the various libraries we use in Python are NumPy, Pandas, TensorFlow, NLTK, many more. These were some of the libraries have been said, but there were many n number of libraries we use in Python. So as we come across NumPy, we use this library for scientific computations, and Pandas were used for tabular and data analysis. As we come across the TensorFlow, used for a deep learning process, and NLTK used for text pre-process. Okay, So these were some of the libraries have been set. As we directly jump into the next question, what is LSTM? What is the function of this, and what is the full form of this? So if anyone knows the answer, can ping me in the chat box, and we'll discuss the answer within a minute. Yeah. Now, as we look into this, the full form of this LSTM stands for long and short-term memory. As we come across the functionalities of this LSTM, it is it is a neural network which is capable of learning very long-term dependencies and recalling the informations for a long period, which is its default behavior as well as function, is called LSTM, which stands for long and short-term memory. Okay, so as we jump into the next question, what is a neural network? So if anyone knows the answer, can ping me in the chat box, and we'll discuss the answer within a minute. Okay. Yeah. As we look into this, these neural networks are the ways to inspire how the neurons in basically it directly helps us to simplify the concepts. Okay, this network consists of three different layers: the input layer, the output layer, and the hidden layer. This is how the neural network is. Okay, so as we jump into the next question, what is data normalization and why do we need it? So if anyone knows the answer, can ping me in the chat box, and we'll discuss the answer within a minute. Yeah. Now, as we look into this, what is the use of this data normalization? Uh, Data normalization, it is a process of standardizing and reforming the data. This process is called as data normalization. It's a step to estimate the data redundancy, and often the data comes in and you get the same information regarding the different formats. Okay, so that's why we use this data normalization, and this is the function of the this is how this and data normalization works on. Okay, so as we jump into the next question, what is a cost function? So if anyone knows the answer, can ping me in the chat box and we'll discuss the answer within a minute. As you look into this, what is this cost function? This cost function is also referred as loss or error function. Basically, this cost function is a measure which to evaluate how good your model's performing, how was the performance of the model as comparatively with the other model, and it also used to compute the error of the output layer during the propagation part. This is how the cost function works on. So as we jump into the next question, what are the differences between arrays and lists in Python? In Python, okay, yeah. So if anyone knows the answer, can ping me in the chat box, and we'll discuss the answer within a minute. Yeah. Now, as we look into this, arrays in Python can only contain some of the elements, like data types and data types, i.e., the data types of arrays should be some of homogeneous format. Okay. So as you come across this list, list in Python contain elements of different data types, i.e. data types of list can be heterogeneous part. This is the disadvantage of consuming very large memory. This is the disadvantage in list because it consumes very large amount of memory in Python. Okay. So as we jump into the next question, what is slicing? So if anyone knows the answer, can pin me in the chat box and we'll discuss the answer within a minute. Yeah, as we look into this, what is slicing? As the name itself suggests, slicing is to taking parts of, which means taking off. Okay. Syntax. There were some syntaxes to be followed for this slicing, and those are start, stop, and step. While starting this indexing part from the list, so which is named it as a start index. So while ending it, it should be given a syntax like stop syntax. So step is number of steps to be converted should be used as the step just to directly to jump the indexes, then we use the step function. These were the three syntaxes for slicing: start, stop, and step. And start function is used for from the starting index onwards, stop function is used while ending index, and the step function is used while jumping those indexes. So as we jump into next question, what are supervised learnings? So if anyone knows the answer, can ping me in the chat box and we'll discuss the answer within a minute. Fine. As we look into this, what are the supervised learning? In supervised learning, the input data should be of labeled data, which uses a training data set, and it should predict some kind used. This supervised learning data are used for predictions, and it also enables the classification and regression models. This is what the supervised learning is. So as we jump into the next question, What are unsupervised learning? So if anyone knows the answer, can ping me in the chat box and we'll discuss the answer within a minute. Yeah. So as we look into this, uh, in this unsupervised learning, the input data will be of unlabeled data, and the data it directly uses the input data sets. And also these unsupervised learning data are used for analysis part, whereas it enables the classification part, dimension reduction and density estimations. Okay. Yeah. So as we jump into the next question, what is histogram and box plot? So if anyone knows the answer, can ping me in the chat box and we'll discuss the answer within a minute. Yeah. Now as we look into this, both the histogram and box plot are used to visually represent the frequency values and regarding the certain figures, which means the bar plot will be of separate representation, as well as the box plot will be of histogram will be of separate explanation. So as we come across this histogram is used to know the underlying probability distributions of data, where box plots are used more to compare several data sets. Like box plots have few details and take up less times than histograms. Okay, yeah. So as we jump into the next question, what does NLP stands for? So if anyone knows the answer, can ping me in the chat box and we'll discuss the answer within a minute. Yeah. Now as we jump into this NLP stands for natural language processing. It is a study of programming computers to learn large amount of textual data. Example for this NLP includes like tokenization, stop words removal, stemming, sentimental analysis, like text mining and all. So that's how it works. So as we jump into the next question, what are unit tests in Python? So if anyone knows the answer, can ping me in the chat box and we'll discuss the answer within a minute. Yeah, as we look into this unit test is a testing frame. It just directly tests the frameworks in Python, which means the testing with different components and software. This is necessary to test each and every component properly, so that we know which component might be highly responsive and failure while executing in the process side, right? Software side. So yeah, that's it for the day, guys. Thanks for watching and see you in the next session. Have a great day, guys.